For over 10 years, I couldn't get my productions to sound how I wanted, so I buried myself in online tutorials trying to figure out why, and even having some of the same tools as other producers and mixers I envied, my productions weren't coming even close. I've heard the term referencing get thrown around, and I thought I was referencing the right way myself, but I was totally wrong, and over time developed a referencing system that would help me produce any desired result. I'm excited to announce that you can now use this same system yourself in our new course, The Magical Guide to Referencing. This gives you the exact framework I've used and successfully taught hundreds of students through the years. If you're ready to stop chasing your mixing tail in circles and ready to understand any mix you hear to replicate those same results for yourself, you can find a link to the Magical Guide to Referencing in the description wherever you're listening. See you there, my friends. Hello and welcome to Working in Music Sucks. My name is John Maciel, and for almost 2 decades I've been working in the audio recording industry. I've worked with producers and mixers like Bo Rochelle, Joey Sturgis, and Josh Newell, and countless others on records with bands like Era, Census Fell, and Moose Blood. And along this journey, I've also worked with 2 of the biggest music educational companies where I helped thousands of aspiring engineers achieve their dreams of making music production a fulfilling full-time career. But as great as that sounds, to be honest, the first 10 years of working in music sucked. I started this podcast to talk about what sucks about working in music so others like myself who love music production and want to wake up every morning fulfilled and driven to making records people love can do just that. Working in music sucks, but with what we talk about on this podcast, it doesn't have to any longer. If that sounds like your cup of coffee, then you're in the right place, my friends. Let's get into it. Welcome back, my friends, to another episode of the Working in Music Sucks podcast. And today's episode, I want to talk about the 5 hardest things that to accept as a mixing engineer. And these are just 5 that I really wanted to discuss because I see it, in forums. These often get brought up and many engineers feel a certain way. So this is my take on these 5 hard truths to accept as a mixing engineer. And the first one is, I see it so many times in forums. People just complain about an artist and how the artist feels about their mix, what they did or didn't do, what would they prefer. And as mixers, we can get so caught up and, we spend so much time learning these technical skills so that when we go and apply them to a mix, it's hard to not kind of take things a little personally, even though that's not what our intention was. It's just, we spend so much time working on ourselves to get better that we kind of pour ourselves a little bit too much into a mix, even at the beginning. And we often take it personally when a band or artist is not happy with the mix, or after, giving us a shot, that wasn't what they originally envisioned or were hoping for. So they want to go in a different direction, and we can't sometimes help but feel a little bit betrayed. But that what we thought was like a partnership and collaboration, and they trusted you and they came to you, for making decisions on the mix that were based on your personality, your preferences, but ultimately it didn't suit the project and their song. And that's the key right there. It's their song. I see so many mixers in forums, and I know I've done this myself as well, so I empathize with it, is we get so attached, and it's almost like we want to become the 5th or 6th or 7th member of that band, but we're not. That's not who we that's not what we were hired to do. We weren't hired to be the band. We were hired to help the band bring their song to life or take it to a level that they think they entrusted us to take it to. And maybe they had second thoughts or whatever the case may be, but it's not our song. We were just simply hired to do a service. And if it's not in the direction that they like to prefer, there's one of 2 options. One, this isn't going to be the best partnership. So to sever ties cleanly and be professional about it. Or 2, suck it up and go in the direction and take the notes to what the band and the artist want. And this happens even at the pro level. This isn't anything that should be surprising. This is going to happen numerous times in your career, and it's something that's a hard truth that we need to accept, that these are not our songs. We cannot be attached to these songs. We need to be attached to bringing the best outcome of the song based on the vision that the artist has for it. But being stuck on that, the premise of what's right for the song, it's not yours. You got to let it go. Don't have an ego about it. Let it go.
maybe the next artist will be thrilled about your approach, and it's going to happen. Just accept it. It is what it is. Don't make a big deal out of it. Just, sometimes they're going to love it, sometimes they're going to hate it. It is what it is. And if you want a great book on how ego can take the best of us as creatives, it's called Ego is the Enemy from Ryan Holiday. I'll put it in the description. It's a fantastic read on kind of just how to always have an objective view on everything. And as a creative, it's incredibly insightful and helpful to remove yourself from something we get emotionally attached to, because it is art, and we're stamping a little bit of ourselves on this art, but we have to remember it's not our song. It's not. It's the artist's song, and we have to pay respects and do what needs to be done and what's in service to the song for the artist. And the next one that I've been guilty of, and I know so many other mixers also are guilty of, and I just wish it wasn't true. Now, to preference, I'm a huge fan of a lot of signature plugins that pro mixers make to utilize. Um, Anything that can get me the desired result or sound faster means more to me than trying to, what I call, like, Mickey Mouse a bunch of plugins together to create the sound of the one thing. Now, I do think it's incredibly important to understand, or try to understand, what's happening by using these channel strip tools or tools that pros make for us to use. We need to understand the theory of what's happening under the hood. So if those tools are removed, we know how to go a long way about doing it ourselves. But I think there's a lot of harm in thinking that just copying a preset or just slapping a plugin on something makes you a mixer. It doesn't. A mixer's job is to be able to cater to the song and solve problems. And if by solving problems you're constantly throwing these channel strip plugin band-aids on everything, what happens when at some point they get removed, they're not working, it wasn't updated, it was bugging, it crashes your DAW all the time? Weird crap happens in this industry all the time. Just pulling up a preset doesn't make you a mixer. Knowing how to get that result on your own is what makes you a mixer. It's a very, very different thing. It's like, the way I like to think of it is as like, you go to the store and you buy like the pre-made cookie dough or the pre-made brownie mix. And with the cookie dough, you literally take it out, teaspoon or a tablespoon, you put it on the sheet, or they're pre-cut, you put them on the sheet, you put them in the oven, take them out and you eat them and they're delicious. That's essentially what we're doing with these plugins and presets. We don't, you know, until we know how to make the cookies and the brownies ourselves from scratch, put them in the oven, do all of that without being handed, it's a totally different scenario. It doesn't make me a chef or a cook or a baker just by putting things in the oven and getting them to sound good. That's not what the job is. That's not what you're being hired to do. So it's really crucial that, yes, utilize those tools. I love them. I use them all the time, but I never fear losing them or not having them, because I understand what's happening under the hood, because I'm a mixer. So I can go and, if I have to, reconstruct or deconstruct what's happening and do it the harder way. I don't want to, but if it were to happen, I know I could. So I'm never really worried about it. And I think it's just really crucial to remember that just because something is available to you doesn't just mean to forget about it. When you have spare time, be curious. How does CLA vocals work? What are the delays? What are the EQs? How do you get a similar EQ curve? What other things does CLA do to make his vocals sound so well? Because this plugin is only giving you one of his recipes. He has a whole cookbook on how to do different things with vocals that, this plugin only does like a handful of what's in that cookbook. It maybe has 10, 15 of those 50,000 recipes that he has. So under watching videos, understanding his mindset, his workflow, what other things, those are going to be the tools that enable you to be a real mixer. But just slapping presets and signature plugins and saying, "Oh, I'll mix this for you," and the client says, "Oh, we actually want to go this direction." But if you're using a channel strip, then you start adding way more plugins than you need to, because now you're trying to like alter this like preset, this plugin chain. It just doesn't suit the song. So be really, really mindful of that stuff. Like, again, they're great. They're fantastic. I love presets from pros. I love their plugins. I use them all the time. but I never worry about losing them because I know how to, recreate what I'm hearing. I just love that I can do it in a single plugin or get that EQ move in like 2 seconds. Eh, learn how they work. Always be curious. Don't stop just because you got a band-aid solution. They're there to make our lives easier, yes, but that's not going to be the defining factor. Like you have to go deeper. Just using presets and signature plugins doesn't make you a mixer. Knowing all the ingredients and how to bring them together to create a great dessert or a meal, that's what's going to make you a mixer. I can already feel everyone's hate. I said I love them too. Don't come at me. This next one, uh, I really feel strongly about it. I have mixed feelings, and I'm going to try to articulate this as best that I can because I don't want it to be misconstrued or misunderstood. A lot of time when an individual wants to go to audio school, they think that going to audio school is going to put you on a traditional career path. There is nothing traditional about what we do as audio engineers, producers, mixers, guitar players, whatever it is. There are trade schools that are there to help us learn the theory and education part of things, and I've gone to audio school myself. But it doesn't prepare you for what it's actually like working in a real world environment. But I know that for a lot of people, because they know and understand that it is competitive, it is a difficult industry and field to go into, that we need something to make us feel like we're making progress in a forward direction, in the right direction. But what I have seen from a lot of friends who have done audio school or people who ask questions about audio school, it's always worded in a way where it's like, I want to go to audio school so I learn all the basics I need to know so that I can go out and do it myself. Anyone who has done it and gone out there and made a career will tell you that it's like going to marketing school, like going to a university for marketing or business school. Those practices are decades old. And when you get into modern marketing, it's like it's not even some of it applies, but most of it doesn't matter anymore because things change and evolve so quickly. Audio and music is the same way. Sure, there are basic theory and principles, but it's very different being taught in a very controlled environment than going and actually doing the thing with people, being in the hot seat with actual equipment that may break down, need to be repaired, all sorts of things. And I notice a lot of people, instead of just going for it and trying to figure it out on their own, they'll use audio school as a way to procrastinate and really kind of keep their feet, like they'll be sitting on the edge of the pool and this is their feet in the water. And they're just thinking about it. They're not 100% sure, but they're procrastinating, just plunging into the water and getting into that pool. And really, you got to get soaked in it. You got to be immersed in it. You have to really, this is a lifestyle. You have to go and be one with the industry, with the lifestyle of the music. It's a culture, it's a whole thing. Going to audio school doesn't always prepare you for what the culture is actually like. And that's why there's so many stories of people who are like, yeah, I went to audio school and it failed and music industry is tough to make it in. I covered this in another episode about, is the music industry saturated? And I spoke about a lot of my thoughts on it, and I'll leave that linked in the description below. But I don't think that those naysayers are the ones who drive the ship. Like there's plenty of room. There's plenty to do. But if you're going to audio school because you just want to tip your toes or you want your parents to think that like you're heading in the right direction, this is not a traditional career field for most people. It's going to be something where you have to hustle, you have to grind, you have to learn to be great at communication and talking to people and networking. These are all skills that to grow a career you have to have. Audio school being a way for you to convince yourself that you're making the right moves is often, for a lot of people, a way to just procrastinate. I went to audio school because I wanted to learn the basics, and I found a school that was also a working studio that was taught. The teachers were actual engineers working on like motion pictures and things, and it was also a place where I could intern. So I chose a school based on like, will I actually be able to get a firsthand world experience and talk to actual professionals? And went to other audio schools. Like a lot of people haven't been in the industry actively for a long time. They made records with people that weren't even in anything remotely near what I wanted to do. It was just very like, I don't know if this is the way, like the way I should go. But so many people get sucked into that because they feel that, oh, it's moving me towards the direction I want to go. But I don't want to like go too far in this because like what if it doesn't work out? If you want to do music as a career, you have to be all in. Now there's different paces to doing that, but you have to understand that this is a lifestyle. This is a way of being. You are becoming part of a larger community that's larger than yourself. So if you think that you're going to be able to ease into it and make a career, nothing worth doing is ever done by doing it safely. You have to kind of risk, and high risk always typically ends up with high reward if you're smart about it. You know, you don't want to be, you want to make sure that you're in a situation that's not going to like leave you homeless and not knowing where your next meal's coming from. But you don't use audio school as a way to procrastinate. You're just hurting yourself, and then you're hurting your wallet. It's so crazy to me. Like, I wish I would have never gone to audio school. Granted, I learned some good stuff and I met some cool people. But the thought to me, like now being this far into my like over a decade long journey, I'm like, why did I spend $30,000 on audio school when I could have just bought gear and done the thing? Like, imagine $30,000 worth of gear to record people that you pay yourself essentially. Like, instead of paying money towards school, I'm going to pay myself 30, 40, $50,000 or whatever audio school costs now. I'm going to pay myself that, and I'm going to buy the gear that I want, the computer, the specs, all that stuff. And then I'm going to go out and have money to go out to different locations to try to meet artists, to take that time to actually get real world experience. And then whatever I feel like I'm lacking in, I will seek the resources to educate myself in the places that I feel like I'm lacking. Like the amount, I wish I would have had that much clarity about audio school at the beginning. Go and spend the money on the actual gear and the real world experience, as opposed to giving it to someone else that's going to give me limited lab time, um, limited everything, really, because you have so many other students that you have to share everything with. So, don't use audio school as a way to procrastinate. Just get out there and do it if you can. If you're anywhere near a studio or something, just try to get in there. Live the culture, live the life. All right. Let's see what's else in my notes because I don't want to forget anything. Okay, this one's gonna be tough. And I made a video on the YouTube channel, on the Plugin Alley YouTube channel. There's a video called "Why 90% of Mixers' Careers Fail." I believe strongly in one of the. I'm talking about one of the principles from that video in this part right here. Um, and it's a hard to swallow pill because we think that what's going to grow our career are mixes. But let me ask you, how many mixes have you heard from bands that you like where you're like, this mix is not great? I think I could do better. Or you hear a mix in another genre or your friends like, and you're just like, man, that is not a good mix. That's crazy. How did they, how did that get into the world? That doesn't sound professional. But it's a release. It's a big artist. They're doing things. You're in your bedroom, you're in your home studio, you're in your regular studio, and you just can't help but think like, how are these people doing it? What am I missing? What you're missing is communication and people skills, which is a very hard thing for audio engineers to accept because most of us, I know I am, huge introverts. If I didn't have to go outside and talk to people, I definitely would not. I love like food delivery apps. Well, I used to. They're too expensive now, but like food delivery apps, grocery delivery apps, Amazon Prime, all that stuff. Me avoiding human contact is great. And let's be honest, it takes a special kind of person to stay stuck in a room for 8 to 10 hours or whatever it is, sometimes 12 to 14, and just like listen to the same thing over and over and over again. Like there's definitely something wrong with most of us to love doing that, right? Like most humans don't want to do that. And I always laugh at like friends and family who aren't, in audio are just like, how can you like do that all day? I'm like, oh, it's great. It's such a treat. But what I noticed happened to my career is like I learned a lot of stuff, got technically proficient, but I didn't have any clients. I didn't have any artists I was working with. No one was hitting me up in my DMs. No one was messaging me to work with me or anything. I wasn't putting nearly enough stuff out there. And I was like, okay, why am I not getting work? And then I realized, you know what? I'm really bad at just communicating, people skills, going out and networking, building relationships, following up, building the rapport, going to shows and just like being a fan first and being helpful and just nurturing relationships. And when you nurture those relationships, great things happen. Artists come to you, they work with you, they love it, they want to come back, they refer you, other people hear your work, they're hitting you up. But it's such a hard thing to grasp that like our careers are not going to be determined by our mix skills. Like ever if you're in this industry long enough, your skills are assumed, right? It's like your skill, whatever it may be, audio engineering, producing, mixing, mastering, at a certain level, your skills are assumed. So what's going to be the factor that differentiates you from the competition from everyone else? Your personality, how easy are you to work with? How are you at communicating the needs of the project, your needs, boundaries, handling tension, turmoil, things in the room with the band, how to stay very neutral, not take sides, how to take the heat sometimes when the band needs to like you just you just take the blame for stuff because the band needs to be the band and stay together and you're like they're going to go on tour, I'm not. I'll just be the bad guy on this. I'll take the blame. I'll suck in all this negative energy. Hopefully it doesn't reflect bad on me enough to where the band doesn't like it or I'm able to deter it. There's all these things you have to think about. And that's people skills, that's communication, that's networking, all the things that we usually hate if you're an introverted engineer like me. But they're so crucial and detrimental. And actually, in the description, I will also leave some links to some more books on communication skills. But if you're ever wondering why you're not getting more clients, more artists to work with you, but your mixes sound great, your recordings sound great, your songs that you produce sound great, it's probably your networking and people skills. You're not doing it right. You're not doing it enough. You're not following up enough. You're not bringing enough value. There's a lot more to it. Highly recommend you go check out that video on the channel as well. And let's see the last one. Oh yeah, this one sucks. uh, so when we first start, the fifth and hardest truth is like a mix is never going to be perfect, right? We hear it from pros all the time where they're like, yeah, it's never 100% what I wanted, but I got it as close to what made the artist happy, right? And as mixers, I think we get into a mix and in our heads, we're like, we need to make this monumentous, like perfection mix opus. Like it has to be a perfect orchestration of sonics, vibe, character depth, clarity, all that stuff. But ultimately, it's not our record. And the artist is going to be the one that has to live with this record for the rest of their careers. We're going to finish the project and move on. It's a hard reality. That's just we don't have to have this. Our careers and our legacy isn't as determined by this record as it is for the artist. Because if you think about it, a mixer can mix like 100 records in 1 year, right? If they're just pumping out record after record, mix after mix, you can get a crap ton of records done in a year with an assistant, and you have a whole year. And let's say 70% of those records are great, 30% of those records people don't really love. Your batting average is still going to be better because 70% of those records did well. So you're going to be more highly judged on the records that did well, that didn't do well, just because of the sheer number of records you put out. When it's an artist, they have one album cycle and they have to live on that album cycle for the next 2 years unless they throw out singles and EPs and things like that. If they're not thrilled about the mix and the record, they now have invested such amount of money that they have to recoup from touring, from merch and all that other stuff to be able to afford to go into make a record as soon as possible because they weren't 100% thrilled. And then that's going to leave a sour taste in their mouth because that record not doing well then puts stipulations on how much the label is willing to give them, how much tour support they're going to get, what artists can they tour with. So the repercussions of not catering to the artist is going to hurt. And you have to understand that to get there, you need to embrace that you're going to suck for a long time, even when you're working with artists. But then you're going to get to a point where you're just going to be in the groove of being able to kind of, be objective about the mix. Like it's a job. You're going to walk in and you're going to be like, yeah, this song sounds great. I figured out the song, yada, yada, yada. But you have to embrace the suck to get to these places. And luckily, it's like if you think about it, it's like a guitar player who has to get through like 1,000 bad riffs to get the good riff, or a producer that has to write 1,000 bad songs to finally get to like one good song, right? You do those reps enough, your averages are going to start going up over time, and then you're going to start being like, oh, out of 100 mixes, 70 of those mixes are actually not that bad. They're actually pretty good. And as you embrace the suck and you get better, you're going to notice that other new problems are going to arise, but you're going to invite and welcome these challenges because they're going to take your mixing to new heights that they couldn't reach before. But it's never going to be at a point to where you're like, I finally know how to make the perfect mix every single time. It just doesn't happen. You get to a point where you're like, this mix is sick. Like, it's as good as I can get it, and other people are going to have a hard time trying to mix like this because I've put in the time, I put in the effort, and this mix is great. And the final seal of approval will always be the artist. And if the art, in my book, if the artist is happy, you should be happy. You win. You won, right? If the artist isn't happy, doesn't matter if your mix sounds sonically amazing. The artist isn't happy. That you're you know what I mean? Like they're the manager and they're going to put on your performance review, yeah, didn't really do the job we hired them for. They did a job, but it wasn't the one we wanted them to do. So just something to keep in mind. It's a hard truth, but got to embrace the suck. You got to make sure that the artist and their song comes first. So, like I always say, working in music sucks. We talk about it every single episode. But hopefully with what we talked about with the 5 hard truths for mixing engineers in this episode, you go forward and you realize it doesn't have to suck. And now with this episode, you've learned a couple of things, you've changed your mindset and gets you a little bit ahead of everyone else. Well, that's all I got for this one, everyone. So thank you, my friends, and I'll see you in the next episode.